Hey guys, welcome to Endstep, the Upkeep Aftershow. Last week, we played with no theme in mind, because America, Independence Day, no theme, freedom. Play whatever anyone wants to play, and it was pretty exciting. It ended up being a pretty close game there at the end. A lot of interaction. I feel like everyone got to kind of do a little bit of what their deck wanted to do. Really awesome game. So let's go ahead and go around the table real quick and just briefly explain why you decided to play this deck. I can go ahead and go first to give you guys a little bit of a basis on what I mean. So like, for example, this deck is really weird. So my Yidris deck is a chaos deck, obviously. There's not a specific theme or a specific episode in season 2 of our show that I'm going to be able to bring this. So I need to just, if I'm going to show it off on the channel at any point, now is the time for me to do it. But what about you, Tom?
I mean, I will say that was a relatively tame game for that deck.
Oh, yeah,
I have seen that deck gets wild. I'm sure you can go over some of the cards, but I'll let you do that. But it can get crazy. I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, for me, I kind of went over it in the intro of the video of the game, but I wanted to play Ishin because I like Ishin. I like the deck I've built around him. I think it's pretty good for our play group, at least. In both the episodes that he's been in before, he didn't really get to do what he wanted to, because in one of them, it was before I added a lot of upgrades to it. It was basically a completely different deck. And then the other one was, Revenge Week of Season 1. And
I won on turn 7.
Yeah, and Morgan curb stomped us on turn 7. So he didn't get much of a chance to do anything he wanted to do in that game either. So I kind of wanted to give him another chance to show it off. And there's not a good, again, similar to Morgan, there's not a good, really, episode of Season 2 that we have planned that he kind of fit into. So this is kind of the last chance I'd get for a while to show him off. So I figured, let's give him another shot. And he did pretty well, I think.
What about you, Jason?
I just love werewolves. Like, that was really the first commander deck I tried to build. And then I realized at the time, there's not enough werewolves to make it work. Not enough good werewolves to make it work.
Until Tovolar came along, also, there just wasn't a good werewolf commander.
Yeah, right. No, you would have to do something like, I don't know, Morphon. Would that be like the best option for a werewolf commander before Tovolar?
No, I mean, there was a legendary werewolf.
Don't bring up the Eldritch Moon. He wasn't good. Wasn't good at all.
He's an okay card, but he's just not a good commander.
When Tovolar came out, I fell in love with it. I mean, we've seen Steven's deck, and I played this as a Tiny Leaders deck before. I don't know, Steven, I'm pretty sure that our werewolf decks, like, they do similar things, but they're constructed differently.
Definitely.
Like, I have a lot of cards in here that you don't have at your deck, and you have a lot of cards in yours that I don't have in mine.
Yeah.
And they both work. They both, like, I would say our decks probably win.
I'd say the win percentage is roughly the same.
Yeah, roughly the same. Which I think is really, really cool. It's the fact that, like, we both built around a commander that pretty much does one thing, but we just did we do that one thing in different ways. And I just kind of wanted to show off what my Tovolar does.
Yeah, and Steven, what made you want to bring this in?
Well, so first of all, this is my only Jeskai deck, which is red, white, blue. So I just figured that was fitting for America. It's just a deck that I've never really played before. Like, I'm not really like into like spell slingers, but like it gives me so much card advantage, and Bralin and Chambers just work so well with each other. And just the fact that the idea is Bralin rides on Shabraz, which is a flying shark, is just hilarious. So when I first discovered Bralin Shabraz, I'm like, okay, eventually I have to make a deck of this. I'm very glad that it has done so well, because when I first had the deck, I played it quite a bit, and it just never won a single game ever. And then I made like a few additions, and it's doing a lot better. And I'm really glad that we actually got to see it do so well this game. So.
Yeah, so they've touched on, the three of us have touched on that doesn't really seem like there's a specific theme in Season 2 that we think we're going to bring back. But I guess this is a little bit of a heads up on what's to come. But Steven, there is a specific episode you're going to play this deck again, and what's that?
A partner.
Yeah, we'll have a partner episode.
Which, there is another deck that I would consider that. I won't go into it yet. It's basically a deck I already have.
Okay.
Just switching the commanders out.
Mysterious.
This may come back. It may not. It has seen a win, but I think there might be another chance in Season 2 where I could bring this deck back theoretically.
We have a lot on the schedule.
Yeah, we do.
When we close off this video, I have to show them the schedule for Season 2. It's a doozy, but it's going to be really fun. We're going to have a lot of really fun themes and show off some cool decks. But let's go ahead and highlight some of our favorite cards in our deck, maybe a couple cards in your deck that you didn't get to show off. I'll go ahead and start off. Honestly, this deck is so crazy. Tommy mentioned that this was a very tame game for this deck, and that's true. I've had games that are just absolutely bonkers, but I wanted to go ahead and highlight a couple cards. First of all, Over the Top was in my hand for basically the entire game, which basically it's like everyone puts cards from the top of their library into play equal to the number of non-land permanents they play. But the problem is it was stuck in my hand because it's 7 mana, but also like there was never a good point for me to do it because I would have like 3 or 4 non-land permanents. It's like, that's not worth it. So that never got to come out. And I'm not going to go too far into explain all of these cards, but I'll have them pop up on the screen for the viewers. And this isn't even all of the crazy cards, but just a few that I think are awesome are the Great Aurora, Confusion in the Ranks, Possibility Storm, Thieves Auction, Scrambleverse, Jocklehops, Time Sifter, and Wheel of Fortune, except I don't want to spend the money on Wheel of Fortune, so it's actually just a Wheel of Misfortune that I scribbled out. If you haven't seen that skit, it's one of our most viewed videos. You should go watch it. This deck is really about pissing off my opponents. I've played this deck probably 7 times now. I've never won with it. At this point, I don't even know if it's possible to win. I feel like that it's really easy to get like good advantage and stuff like that, but I don't even know if this deck can win. So it's really just about irritating the snot out of my opponents, which, you know, just makes them want to kill me. But it is what it is. But Tommy, are there a couple cards in your deck that you, after playing, you've played Ishin on the channel 4 times now?
3.
Good. Episode 0.
Oh, okay, episode 0. Yeah,
If you count 0.
Episode 0, episode 4, episode 12, and now.
And now. That haven't been played. I think I probably mentioned these last time on Revenge Week at least, but a fun infinite combo that I have in there is Godo, Bandit Warlord, and Helm of the Host.
Yes.
That's just straight up I win the game if I can get that off. I have infinite combat steps.
We all know what Godo is.
Everybody knows what Godo and Helm does.
No, I that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Because when I first started playing Magic, I went to the LGS here, and this one kid, the only deck he had
was Godo.
A Godo Bandit Warlord deck.
And he just had every infinite combo in the book in there.
He made it like a CEDH deck.
Yep.
And so it's like he's getting Godo out on turn 2, turn 3, every game, winning just immediately. And I was like, this is awful. So
that's Commander.
That's CEDH.
I don't like Godo.
That's fair. That's understandable.
So Jason, this isn't actually the first time you've played Tovolar on the show. You did get to play a version of it on the Tiny Leaders episode. But are there any other other cards that maybe haven't got to show off yet?
Well, in the Tiny Leaders deck, since it's only 3 CMC, a lot of the real heavy hitters, the power hitters, didn't have an opportunity to make it. A couple of them got played today because this Berserker's Onslaught, it's without question one of the best cards in the deck. I would probably say it's the second best card in the deck. It needs a board state. I need creatures to do stuff with it. I want to explain how this all went down at the end of the game because I may have had a way to pull it out, but it just didn't go the right way.
Because Steven went back on his word.
Well, that, and I pulled the wrong thing out of my graveyard earlier in the game. So I should have pulled this Berserker's Onslaught out of the, which gives my creatures double strike. Because I noticed, and you'll probably notice this when you watch it, no one used any enchantment-specific removal. No one destroyed any enchantment specifically. It was either destroy everything or destroy things that aren't enchantments. So if I'd have pulled this out, it probably would have been fine and would have sat. And then there was that point where I got Tovolar back out, I had the Crew and Outlaw out, and I had the Birdadmire out. So when it gets back to my turn, Tovolar's going to flip all them into werewolves. Now, I had Familiar Ground in my hand. Each creature you control cannot be blocked by more than one creature. Any creature with Menace is immediately unblockable now, because Menace says you have to block with 2. This says, well, you can only block with 1. Cancels out. It's really, really, really good in this deck. For those of you that already know, you know what Crew and Outlaw does. For those of you that don't, when you flip it, basically it gives all your wolves and werewolves Menace. So these 2 make it unblockable. Don't ever do this at the end of a Commander game. Don't ever do it.
Did you look at the top card?
I looked at the top card, and it would have been Unnatural Growth.
Yeah.
So that would have I would have been a powerhouse at that point, but I don't know. You never know what would have happened. But yeah, I think Unnatural Growth is the best card in this deck. I have won a lot of games with Tovolar solely because of this.
Yeah, that card's fantastic.
It's a staple in green for a reason.
That
Green Commander, at least for a reason.
Avabrook Caretaker. Avabrook Caretaker, I would say.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
That card basically won me the game
card
in episode 0.
It's so good.
I made a video a couple weeks ago that didn't get a lot of views. You should go watch it. It's the top 6 mana 6/6 creatures, in my opinion, for the game. And Everbrook Caretaker's on the list. Pretty spicy. Steven, what about you? Are there a couple cards you wanted to highlight that we didn't get to see in the game?
I pulled aside the Locust God. You saw that a little bit. The Locust God did not do anything crazy, so y'all needed to...
There's literally infinite combos with the Locust God.
Probably it's not fair to act like the Locust God isn't a scary creature and should be feared. It's like you can't act like it's not.
Right, but it didn't do anything because I don't have
Partially
infinite
because we
combos
didn't
with it.
let it do anything.
Other cards that I had in the deck that I did not get to really show off was Niv-Mizzet Parun.
Do you have any of the infinite combos with that card?
Nope. But it's just with how many instant sorceries I end up casting, especially with when we played against your Ramos deck, which the idea of that is to build Ramos up to 5 counters, then remove those counters, and then you add all that mana to your mana pool. Mm-hmm. And then you just play a bunch of...
I played Ramos, not you. That was on when we all played your decks. I played Ramos, and that
well, I was just talking just the last time we got together.
Or even off the channel.
It was a game that we didn't film.
Yeah, you cast an instant.
You just get a lot of value.
I draw a card. Okay, I draw a card. Okay, I'll deal damage to you.
Yeah.
And it's just a 5/5 flying creature that can't be countered, so it's decent in that by itself. Shorekai Genesis Engine is.
Do you have any of the infinite combos with that card?
No.
Steven keeps talking about all these scary cards.
It's not scary.
I mean, they're not nearly as scary if he doesn't have the combo pieces for him, to be fair, but they're still scary.
I think I've been verbal about this before.
I'm not defending
No, I know.
I don't like infinite combos. I don't believe that it is a fair way to win. I don't feel like that you don't feel like a winner if you win with an infinite combo.
I feel like that's a discussion for a different video.
So we can
I feel like infinite combos are fair, but if like you always win with an infinite combo, that's just lame.
The way I've said it before is I like infinite combos when they're an option for winning, but not the option.
Well, yeah, and we talked about this in the Endstep for episode 12 because I went on like turn 7, and part of what enabled me to do that was gain infinite mana. We had a conversation in that episode Endstep. So if you want a more in-depth conversation about infinite combos, go watch that. Or I do have like a 6-minute long video about infinite combos. You can go check that out too.
So I won't.
But anyways, not to belittle that, but Shorekai's pretty cool.
So yes, Shorekai's really good in the deck. I don't have any infinite combos in the deck. Okay, Shark Typhoon.
It's awesome.
It's flavorful. I love
so
it.
great.
It is flavorful. It's the only other thing that can make sharks in the deck. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're gonna get a bunch of sharks with flying. Vanish into Memory. I think is a really interesting instant. You exile target creature. You draw cards equal to that creature's power. At the beginning of your next end step, return that card onto the battlefield under its owner's control. If you do, discard cards equal to that creature's toughness.
Wow, that's a double whammy for you.
It is really good in this deck, especially when I have Shabraz and Vralin out on the battlefield.
You can just do it for value, but the fact that it's an instant also means you can use it to protect yourself.
Yes.
If he's going to send the Ulamog Crusher at you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really happy that you upgraded this deck to a point
too.
where it's actually like playable.
It's actually
it used to be
good.
like balls.
Yeah.
And now it's actually pretty good.
It was pretty bad.
I want to highlight a couple moments in the game. You already talked about like, oh, I should have grabbed this card back and maybe I could have pulled out a win. So I went ahead and I'm sure you guys saw me doing this, but my Glimpse of Tomorrow was about to go off and I was curious, what was I going to get? How much would it have swayed the game? The answer is not a lot. I was mostly getting lands off of it, but one of the few non-land cards that I would have got is really funny, so I want to point it out. Teferi's Realm, for 1 blue, it's an enchant world. So enchant worlds are, there can only be one in play at a time. It's an old card type that we don't really see anymore. I haven't seen it in a long time.
one in like over a decade.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
This is a reserveless card. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses artifacts, creatures, lands, or global enchantments. All cards of that type phase out. Mm-hmm. On everyone's turn, they basically have to say, all right, we're going to work with a little bit of something less. Now, granted, you're usually able to kind of leverage that to a way that it doesn't hurt you that bad, but there are definitely situations where it's pretty funny. So it would have kind of been cool to see that in play. Also, this is maybe the only reserve list card I own, so that would have also just been cool to...
What are you talking about? You have a Wheel of Fortune.
No, I don't know. You know what's funny is that video I made where I turned the Wheel of Misfortune into a Wheel of Fortune. It only has like 80% like it has 20% dislike, which is way higher than almost maybe any video on the channel. And that's because people are like, "Oh my god, you ruined a Magic card." I was like, "Guys, it's like a $2 card."
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be honest, it's going up in price. Wheel of Misfortune is like, and now it's like $5 or $6, and now I'm like, ugh, yeah.
That just makes me think, Steven, you should do a similar thing to Shark Typhoon as to what he did to his Wheel of Misfortune. You should like cross it out, a Typhoon, and write NATO.
Sharknado. And then just get like a screenshot of the movie poster, put on the art.
Someone did leave a comment on that video. He's like, "Why didn't you just put it in a sleeve and put the Sharpie on the sleeve?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could have."
You could have.
But anyways, that was cool. The game ended up being really, really close there at the end. So I want to kind of talk to, have Tommy and Steven have an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the end of the game there, because it was getting really, really close, to the point where I think that if Tommy got one more combat stuff, I think he would have won.
Oh, yeah.
If I had one more turn, I would have won.
If he attacks one more time, it was over.
Yeah.
So, if he didn't give Browlin flying, I would have won.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Which would have been Tommy's first win on the channel.
Yeah.
Which would have been pretty cool.
Would've
But
been fun.
So Steven's now at what, 3 wins, I think? Steven, I think.
If you don't
or
count
4.
episode 0, then 3.
Oh, right. What were your guys' main hopes or concerns there on the last turn? Was there anything else other than him just giving Browlin flying? Was there anything else you were worried about?
Not really. I mean, literally, because I'm trying to find the card. I shouldn't have put it away already. This card, Unbreakable Formation, would give all my creatures indestructible till the end of the turn, so it would have given me free chump blockers that would have stayed alive to deal extra damage to him on the next turn. That pretty much made me not as afraid. I had this in my hand. I left the mana up to play it if he was going to swing at me. At that point, I knew the only way I lose this is if he can get Browlin big enough to kill me, and then get Shabraz out to give it flying. That's the only way he could have got me. Because I was also thinking, well, I could have left up my Vengeful Ancestor as a blocker because it has flying, but then it wouldn't have goaded 2 of his creatures. So it's like that may have saved me, but I don't think it would have.
It's hard to say.
Because I had the Unbreakable Formation, my plan was that if he doesn't give it flying, I cast that to keep all my creatures alive and then just swing out on him next turn. And regardless, and then because I had the Ulamog's Crusher, he would have either had to just sacrifice 4 of his lands, which would have been probably smart because he probably wasn't going to get much of another turn anyway, and then the damage would have gone through. And so it was going to be a significant amount of damage anyway. So
yeah. So Steven, I mean, you obviously did. I mean, you did lose a couple lands there at the end of the game because of the Ulamog Crusher, but you still definitely had the mana to recast Shabraz and give Browlin flying. But were you at all concerned about being able to get Browlin, or were you kind of playing the poker face like, oh yeah, no, I got it?
I was kind of like trying to do the math, like at his combat step when I was like having to sacrifice the lands. I was like, do I have enough? And I was just trying to think like, okay, so if I tap that one, draw a card, discard a card, deal 1 damage. Like I was like just trying to think about everything.
How much can you?
And
chip me for
I was like,
before,
I think I could have. My only other hope would have probably just just draw into a board wipe.
Which, with how many cards you were drawing, you maybe could have found.
And I do have a few board wipes on the deck.
Still wouldn't have killed my creatures because Indestructible gets past board wipes.
I do have board wipes that are exile.
Yeah, if you exile them, then
I do have one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it just says exile all non-land permanents.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of Endstep, unless anyone had any other comments.
Just want to say this. Steven didn't break his deal. We made a deal, said we would have an alliance until Morgan was dead. I was just upset that he turned on me so soon. It was like the second Morgan died, he was just like, I'm coming for you. That's what hurt.
But that's what hurt. But that's always what ends up happening.
But we had been through so much together. I just thought that we would have a little bit more time. But
have a little bit more time to say goodbye.
I can't fault him for being cutthroat.
I mean, I still think it would have been more fun if you killed Tommy and let me do the glimpse of tomorrow, but whatever! Like I said, I don't know for sure, but I don't think we're going to have any more episodes until Season 2 actually starts. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this is insightful to see a little bit more about our decks and the games and what's going on in our minds, and I also hope it encourages you and your play groups to have these kind of conversations as well. It really helps balance your decks and make sure everyone's on the same playing field as to what they want in their games. But we will be back with more games, and make sure you subscribe so you can see other stuff along the way, because other stuff's happening here too, not just gameplay. So yeah, bye!